he'll never get out at the Village Poppy.
I don't know.
We're not sure.
We're not sure.
Okay.
I don't quite know which way that's going. The other person I killed off that will be coming out next year is it's Death of a Dustman. I hate dustmen. What they do is they have these sort of environment-friendly boxes, and you put papers in one and cans in the other. But if you've got flowers, you know, a vase of flowers and they've wilted, and you put it in with your garbage, and you find a little note saying, "We do not take garden refuse."
No.
And things like this. So I thought, what would happen if you got one of those, you know, who was using his uniform. There's a green environmentalist who dresses him up in a uniform designed by her nephew, and he looks like the dictator of a South American republic in a green uniform with epaulets, and goes around bullying the village. You know, all he needs is a swagger stick. And, well, you know what's going to happen to him. But the point about this is Benjamin Franklin, in his autobiography, in London in the 18th century, was pointing out this streak of obstructiveness. And it hasn't changed since. My husband is more, sounds like Agatha Raisin. I remember we were checking in at Stansted to go to Cyprus, and this woman was being very, very obstructive. And he said, "My dear woman, what is up with your manner? Is it the uniform? Has it gone to your head?"
Oh, what a lovely thing to say. See, I can hardly envision an American actually saying anything like that. I would love to, though. Good for him. Well, you'll have to resist the Alfred P. Doolittle. I mean, I think it would be hard to write about a dustman because I'd probably never get past Alfred P. Doolittle in My Fair Lady, which is such a classic. But
oh, yes, that was it. In fact, I think the wonderful phrase in that, particularly when we had the opposition leader of the Labour Party, Neil Kinnock, when he was up against Margaret Thatcher, and he lost so many arguments because of the repetitiveness. And I kept thinking of Professor Higgins saying about Doolittle, listen to the warbling of his native wood notes wild. I'm willing to serve you. I'm wanting to, you know. And this was Kinnock. Everything was repeated.
I hadn't thought of that. Yes,
yeah,
that's very nice.
That's the Welsh in him said. That's the Welsh in him.
Well, Hamish has had how many books by now? At least, well, you're up well up into the teens.
I'm not quite sure.
I'm not either. I have The Highland Christmas, which was a little...
It was a novella for Christmas, yes.
Right.
The picture on the back was unfortunate. It was, I was reporting some stuff for the BBC, and this was a makeover middle age.
Ah.
They sent me to get my face grouted, and I got so self-conscious, I made a face at the camera. I'd sent it as a joke to them, and they used it.
Well, I see. The new Agatha Raisin that you have is Agatha Raisin and the Fairies of Freyfam, which has a wonderful plot, but I really enjoyed Agatha Raisin and the Witch of Wickhaddon. Now, which is the one in which the beauty parlor and Agatha loses all her hair in the...
That's the Wizard of Evesham.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's gone to Wickhaddon.
She's gone to Wickhaddon with the wig on.
Right, having lost all her hair in pursuit of crime. And so she's, trying to grow it out and overcome this embarrassment.
Yes, that's right. And she goes to the Witch of Wickhaddon and finds she's got this lotion to put on her hair.
And so the crime takes place away from her Cotswold village because she'd sent her away. Yeah. Now, in the Fairies of Freyfam, you have again sent her off somewhere else.
To Norfolk,
right.
Yes. Well, that's because when she was, she went to an end of the pier, fortune teller in Wickhaddon, who tells her her destiny lies in Norfolk. So when she gets back, she sticks a pin in the map, and it lands on the village of Freyfam. And she decides to rent a house there, sell her house, and then she doesn't like the people who come to buy her house in Carsley, so she decides not to sell it, but to go over for the winter to Freyfam. And of course she ends up in a murder case and finds herself as chief suspect.
Well, there was sort of an Arthur Conan Doyle fairies in the bottom of the garden feeling to it.
Yes.
And of course there's the Stubbs and the Squire, you know, the
Yeah.
wonderful painting. But I thought it was interesting that you've, because Agatha, having left her London PR firm, comes to this Cotswold village in Carsley, and you yourself now live in the Cotswolds, so I'm sure this
Yes.
is part of it. And she's had various episodes after the quiche.
Yeah.
In which she has fallen for her neighbor, James Lacey, and things have gone on. But now your last two books, you've had her actually touring, so to speak, you know, in
Yes.
different. Is that because it gets a little confining to just always be in the one village?
Yes, it does, and the body count for one village can stretch the reader's imagination a bit too far. So I decided just to move her out. Also, in these two, I invented the location so that in this Wickhaddon you can invent a whole seaside town. You can
Right.
invent the streets and the cinema. And the episode in Wickhaddon when they're watching the Titanic and they suddenly feel water rising up their knees actually happened in Leamington Spa during the floods last year. The people were all sitting in the cinema watching the Titanic. They suddenly realized it was terribly realistic, and then they realized that the river had come into the cinema and was rising up to the knees.
Oh no, that must have been a dramatic moment.
Yeah.
Well, what fun! So you get the fun of minding real life in order to.
Yes, well, I never thought to see a sea rescue patrol out in the Midlands like it was last year. I went down to Evesham, there's a diversion. I thought I'd go down along the waterfront, and down there's no waterfront. And the River Avon had burst its banks, and caravans were floating down it, and I thought, you know, I put Agatha Raisin on the bridge looking down and seeing a body floating underneath.
Well, you did have her almost to the altar with Mr. Lacey, and then fate intervenes, and so I assume she's going to go back at some point to Carsley and, you know,
Yes.
see what's going on. But she is a portable character. You don't actually have to keep her there.
No,
You know, you
she
could
is
sell the
portable,
house and take her. Hamish, because of his job with the Highland Police, can't really move. But Agatha, who's really a freelancer, you know, she's a true amateur sleuth as opposed to a professional sleuth.
That's right.
You know, you could relocate her anywhere.
Yes, except I have a fondness for the Cotswolds because that's the characters that carry the series forward are not just Agatha but Mrs. Bloxby, you see, and and the people in the village.
But do you find that a series has a somewhat finite life? You know, that at some point you either have too many characters that you're following, or the body count has implausibly risen in the village, or whatever it might be?
No, not yet. I've taken a holiday from both Agatha and Hamish in the Nick St. Martin's book,
You have.
which is coming out in November. It was originally called Dandelion Summer
Mm-hmm.
because in May, if there's a lot of dandelions in the Cotswolds, they say it's going to be a really scorching summer. So, but as Hope said, it's not a very good title for a mystery story, so it's called Skeleton in the Closet, which the art department should like. And it's a one-off. It's a couple of, at the beginning of the book, failures who gradually finding some strength through each other and through the investigation.
Well, knowing that that was coming, because I had spoken to Hope about it, I was wondering if that was just because it was a story that didn't fit the two characters that you're writing, or whether you just wanted to do something different. See, I think at some point when writers are doing long-term series, they quite long to step outside and do something else.
It sparked my imagination. I'd gone to there was a signalman down at Morton and Marsh who invited us to it's a charity dinner for the Great Western Railway Workers Union.
Mm-hmm.